Okay, we are here tonight to do a round table. We're actually going to get to do more of these tables style chats. Turned out we enjoy these as much as you all seem to enjoy watching them. We're going to do more topics than just reading the Havamal. Tonight's not Havamal. We're going to actually be round tabling some topics. If you have a topic you'd like us to round table, put that in the comments below. We'll try and get to it. We're going to start with a list of paranormal incidents, cryptids, oddities, random mysteries. We even kicked around possible aliens and Bermuda Triangle stuff. We're still figuring out what all we're going to do, but that's what we're going to try to gear some of these to. So we'll be doing Havamal and whatever topic we're going to be talking about that next week. It will be me and Jade, and of course Halloween will join us also when she can. There's one topic in particular that if we do without her, she may hurt us. So I'll have to schedule that one around her for sure. Tonight, though, we actually want to talk on something that it's been a passion of mine for a very long time, and even a pet peeve. Gotta admit, it's a pet peeve of mine. And Jade, you actually brought this to my attention this weekend when you pitched the idea of doing this style of video. Mm-hmm. So I had to make that the first one because, again, pet peeve. You know how I am. I get a little OCD with my pet peeves. So, and that is paranormal investigations. In theory, how to approach them. Mm-hmm. Can a metaphysical practice be of benefit to them? Should we use a metaphysical practice? Yes or no? And if the yes, is there a way to do it right? And is there a way to do it wrong? Which that's a pretty loaded topic. Mm-hmm. So what you pitched it. So what were your starting thoughts on this?
I mean, honestly, there's so many different groups out there that do paranormal activity and have investigations and have their own methods, and just seeing things on, social media. And it seems like the paranormal investigation topic keeps on growing and growing as there's more interest in the metaphysical. And at the same time, there's a lot of videos that, I mean, me looking at it as a practitioner, I can see are obviously faked, as well as there's some legitimacy to some of those videos as well.
Yeah. And I've had my own groups. I've gone with different groups with varying successes and varying techniques. And I think most people, definitely my generation, probably got their biggest exposure from the show Ghost Hunters originally. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's been many since then that's come out. Some definitely better than others. And even methodologies and theories have evolved throughout the time. And tools are definitely different today than they were 15 years ago. And I would say some better than others. Like originally, yes. Let's be honest, the ghost hunting kit was EMF and digital recorder. Mm-hmm. That was basically the standard go-to. And at this point in time, I'd even argue there's still two of the best pieces of equipment outside of night vision camera.
Yeah, very true.
At least for provable data. So now you did ask me if I had any horror stories.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I've worked with some really interesting groups, some of them really good. I did work with a very small paranormal group in Louisville, Kentucky, about 15 years ago. Though they were a very small group, they handled themselves very professionally. They had the IR cameras, they did the audio recordings. Though they had a few metaphysical practitioners, they kept the metaphysics out entirely. They kept it to the science.
Oh.
The only time they brought metaphysics in was if they had a really tough situation where a person was trying to get rid of the entity, which is ironically how they brought me in. The two pagans they had on their team couldn't deal with the particular issue at hand. But they'd done their best to keep everything to the science. And they really only brought the metaphysics in to more or less bring comfort and peace to the client, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That one's not a horror story, clearly. That's to show there are good groups out there. But about 8 to 10 years ago, I hooked up with a group. Now, when I was talking to them, interviewing with them, meeting with them, and talking about going out on some investigations with them, I made it known the science was the important part to me. That if I was going to do this, that's where I wanted to focus. And they assured me that my phone has decided to randomly make noise. I thought I had that muted. My apologies. Won't it mute? It won't mute. Now it's muted. Sorry. Yay for live recording. Okay. However, the first investigation went really well. I was actually impressed. Met a lot of interesting people. In fact, one of the individuals I met, me and her argued back and forth, bickering in a friendly fashion. Because up until that day, I would say I've never met a Mormon that could stand me. That's the nicest way to put it. So when she said she was a Mormon, I literally said, "You're lying to me. Can't be." Turned out she was. Go fig. We're still friends. But after that first investigation, things went downhill quickly because outside what I brought, no one was bringing equipment. They were going in and basically doing seances that the actual group leader advertised herself as a professional medium. And the second investigation took place after I recommended her to an individual I knew who owned a shop in actually a pretty active town. And I mean, it just went bad. I can't even begin to explain that night because it was literally a seance. It looked more like a seance than an investigation, hands down. And then when she did go to the shop of my friend to see if there was anything there, again, no equipment. She just literally walked around the shop and she was doing this like she was on a ship, and she was actually talking about the tilting of the ocean, and she could smell fire. And she basically told the owner of the shop that clearly the shop had flooded at some point and or burned down, and it had been used to house sailors. Turns out the shop owner actually had the full historical documents on this building because it's a historical town. None of it was there. None. Hadn't flooded.
Oh my gosh.
Sailors, no fires. It was embarrassing. I could not apologize enough for setting that one up. So it can go good and it can go ugly. Very ugly. But that is not to say the two can't meet. You know what I mean? Have you actually done any investigations yourself?
Not any like real investigations. I've honestly, because I mean, I've never really been introduced to any groups out here that do that kind of stuff, nor do I have the equipment to properly do it as well. However, just because curiosity is always a thing of mine, gets me into trouble a lot.
Well, we get along.
I have tinkered around with apps on phones just to see if there's any legitimacy to those, because I see those on social media all the freaking time. Come to find out, I mean, I had my assumptions, but I wanted to test it out with as much of a neutral standpoint as possible just to see if they had some legitimacy to it.
Okay.
More so than not, the apps that claim that they are ghost readers and whatnot,
Okay.
they most of them are bogus. They're more novelty, if anything else.
Um,
Reason being, for one, phones and tablets aren't built with the proper technology within them to do that type of energy reading.
no, that makes sense.
And I mean, I even ran around my house looking like a weirdo with my phone, trying to scan everything in my house. Families look at me all cross-eyed because my phone, like, okay, nope, 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 nope. And the app showed that there was a spirit inside of an olive oil bottle. That there was a spirit um on my TV shelf just sitting there, but what was also there is something, it's like a little stand in a way that could potentially be misread as like legs and stuff.
Right.
So because I think it does part of its scanning based off of just structures. So like for instance, the bottle has kind of like a tall structure with a narrowed top, so it kind of looks like a figure. And so
Right.
I will, what I based it off of was that it just those apps try to find things that have what could be a structure and says, oh, it's a ghost.
Pattern recognition, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
There's also apps that do heat signature, but again, those are hard to base off of because homes can have. I apologize if there's noise in the background. My daughter is not having a good time right now, not being able to get to me. So
It's all right. You're doing your super mom bit. It's understandable.
yeah, there's apps that do like energy or heat signature reading, which again is not very accurate because in homes there's those leaks in the walls and the windows that could let heat leach in at different
Right.
points. And there are some occasions where you might be able to see some oddities, but it wasn't accurate enough for me to say that it's 100%
That might be an
for sure way of
interesting.
tracking energy.
It might be an interesting little thing to do if you and I can ever put it together to try and
Mm-hmm.
track down one of these apps and put it against like, do they have an app to duplicate the EMF detector, for example,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and see how well that does against an actual EMF detector?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be an
Yeah.
interesting comparison there. I mean, I will say I've gotten pretty good audio from just the digital recorder on my phone, but that's nothing too fancy. The phones don't always give you the best audio though. They're getting better. They are definitely getting better.
Yeah.
Um, but as the other ones, I've never used those apps. Well, go figure. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really do technology much anyway. But that is an actual interesting concept, and I can see. Okay, something just fell. Oh, it's my hat. We'll put that up there.
Interesting.
um, so it would be interesting to test some of those and see how they went up against
Yeah.
things. And pattern recognition makes sense. That'd be a good way to set up a novelty app, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally haven't gotten a chance to use those. So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone here has apps like that that they've used, perhaps comment and maybe me and Jade will check those out and see what we think about them.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to test out apps that you guys suggest to see if there's any legitimacy to them.
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun actually. I mean, I generally like to have different pieces of equipment just because if your phone fails and everything's dead that way. So I'm not big on the app concept, but I can see why it would be beneficial for especially people just starting for the hobby of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which kind of does bring us back to how would you go about doing it? Um, which the first thing I will say, if you are going to get into paranormal investigations, This should be a no-brainer, but surprisingly, it isn't. Do not break and enter. Do not trespass. Do not go where you're not
Mhm.
welcome. Period. End of story. That discussion is closed. Make sure you have permission to be where you are and investigate where you're investigating. Next, and this may or may not surprise a lot of people, focus on the science. I know from a mage that probably sounds weird because they're like, Drake, Jay, in the gilded community, you've talked about being able to do this. Drake, you've done this. You've been able to solve these problems. Jade, you've gotten your grandmother's recipe for, I forgot what it was,
Mhm.
from your grandmother after
Yeah.
she passed away. The whole family even agrees it's the exact same thing.
Mhm.
Yes, but here's the thing. Jade's family does not count as a scientific result.
No.
They could be pulling from the memory of it or anything. There's so many variables that go in there. But the result is pretty freaking good for what you did,
Mhm.
especially not knowing how she did it at all. Um, but when we're talking about paranormal research, we need to focus on real data and real science.
Mhm.
And I can probably hear a bunch of practitioners screaming at me right now. Ouija boards everywhere, wet. Um,
Mhm.
but hear me out on this. First off, a Ouija board is a game invented by Milton Bradley. I've debunked more Ouija boards than I can count, sadly. I can't even trust them metaphysically, much less on a scientific style investigation. But what happens when we prove something, we have to be able to prove it tangibly. And so you have to ask yourself, if I present this to a skeptic, what's its validity to them? Now, if
Mhm.
they're already a skeptic, audio recordings, video, and whatnot, can be hard, even then for some. But the moment you cross the woo-woo line, you done lost them. They're not listening.
Mhm.
I think that's fairly agreeable.
Yeah.
So don't be the person with her arms out, walking like she's on a boat, even though she's on a perfectly stable hardwood floor. Don't do that.
Mhm.
But that's not to say that a practitioner doesn't bring something to it.
Yeah.
Because if a practitioner walks through a house during the initial breakdown of activity, they can be using their arcane senses, reaching out, picking out rooms where the energy may be off or whatnot.
Mhm.
You can use that information you're getting to decide where you want to put your audio recorders, where you want to set up your
Mhm.
cameras, what rooms do you want to focus on for your EVP sessions, um, what activity and what equipment might be more productive where. So you can
Mhm.
use your skill set to actually tactically position the investigation to catch the scientific data.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. So another one of my questions I think I would want to ask you, because thinking of me pre metaphysical practice.
Okay.
So several years ago, you put me into a place that has paranormal activity, I would run out of there within 2 seconds of hearing any noise happening.
Okay.
Now that I've been exposed to it, I have a different approach. So, one of my things that I've always wondered, if with these paranormal investigations, are people's fears feeding into them thinking there's stuff that really isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I would say absolutely. One of the things, anytime I go in, I'm a debunker. You have to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do paranormal investigation, first and foremost, you have to go in skeptic and willing and ready to debunk. You are
Mm-hmm.
looking for a reason, a physical, real world, normal, non paranormal reason for the activity they're explaining.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for you to do that, you have to step back from the fact that you want to prove this information to ask yourself, how could it produce itself otherwise?
Mm-hmm.
So that takes, you have to step back to do that. But if you already walk
Mm-hmm.
in and you're afraid, you're immediately on high alert. You're looking for something to jump out. You're looking for something to throw something at you. You're looking for something to scare the bejesus out of you. And your brain is designed, our brains scientifically try to put patterns together. And if you're already looking for that pattern, you're going to find it. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you're afraid of, but you will see it in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So the when they say the darkness plays tricks on you,
Mm-hmm.
that's literally what they mean. Every little sound and movement is going to spook you because your brain's going to jump to the fear side and try to fill that in. Whatever it is that made the noise, you're going to fill it in with something you're afraid of, as opposed to what is this just natural sound.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that can really get out of control and run away with the person really, really quick. So it is
Mm-hmm.
hard to go in afraid of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say absolutely, absolutely. Now that's not to say even if you go in skeptically, something's not going to happen that's going to scare you. I won't lie.
Mm-hmm.
I have screamed like a little girl more than once in an investigation. The first one that comes to mind, I wasn't the only one. There was three of us big manly men. We went down in this basement to do a walk around, and one of us had been down there, but apparently hadn't been paying attention. The other two, myself and Nick, we got there late, so we hadn't been there for the walkthrough. But we got down there. We're doing a good thorough sweep. It's lights out. I see good in the dark, so I'm not even got a flashlight. They kick theirs off as soon as they hit the bottom of the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, we turn a corner and every one of us starts spewing profanities and screaming because we just walked into a Amazon-sized spider web.
Oh.
So Nick don't want it in his hair. Jim don't want it on his hat. I don't want spiders anywhere near me. I have arachnophobia.
Mm-mm.
We
Nope.
cussed, spewed profanities, screamed like little girls, and ran upstairs. Like you do. The other one they completely set me up on. When it comes to ghosts, children ghosts freak me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I already don't like dolls. Dolls are weird. So we was wondering, it was lights out, and we were getting ready to go in this room, and they literally set me up because another investigator hollered at me as we was entering the room, which causes you to look back. Well, they know I'll continue to look back and make sure they know I heard them as I enter a room. Now, that's my good buddy back here that hollered at me. My other good buddy, who would do me no wrong, is walked in the room first. No sooner than I turn around, he kicks on his mag light, holding the creepiest freaking doll I've ever seen in front of his face, and the whole room is just filled with creepy dolls. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't. So I punched the
Oh
doll,
no.
aka him, because he was behind the doll, and ran. So if you're gonna play a prank like that, be careful who you do it on. You might get hit. You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's honestly fair game at that point.
that's just rude. Don't do that stuff. It's not professional,
Oh geez.
though. I'll admit the particular homeowner on that instance, she couldn't stop laughing at that.
Mm-hmm.
But generally don't count on the homeowner to be so chill about things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say most of those scenarios, even if you're going into debunk, put in the right scenario, people get scared. The best
Mhm.
of us have a phobia of some kind. But then there's also really weird situations you run into that they're not only terrifying, they're disorienting because um, we did one investigation where I'll admit this room was freaking everyone out. And they sent me in there. Well, not only did it freak me out, I mean, I was getting nauseous. I mean, if you set me down in a spinny chair and spun me for an hour, that kind of nauseous.
Oh gosh.
So, right off the bat, everyone's like, something is really wrong with this room. The whole house is at this like relatively reasonably warm temperature. You walk into this room, it gets colder, and it's just disoriented.
Mhm.
And then me, the metaphysical guy, is the most disoriented of all. So everybody's naturally saying, well, the energy's really screwed up. Look what it's doing to you.
Mhm.
And I'll admit, the whole night we're doing this, I could not figure out necessarily what was wrong with this room. Because remember, I said I see good in the dark?
Mhm.
Well, I walked into this small room and the room seemed like 10 times bigger. It's like the room was constantly doing this to change its shape. Didn't have an answer for that.
Mhm.
At the end of the night, lights came on and everything. I decided I wanted to go back and look at that room. The moment I walked in there, it all made sense. What I had not known originally was this room is one, it's a bathroom, aka it's going to be cooler.
Mhm.
But the disorienting thing, you've seen a tiled bathroom, right?
Mhm.
Tiles everywhere. Imagine if every one of those tiles was a mirror. This bathroom was tiled in mirrors.
Oh my
So when the light is
gosh.
on, it's absolutely gorgeous, if not a little weird.
Mhm.
But when the lights go off, those mirrors are bouncing light around every which direction. So if you can't see as well as some in the dark, it's just disorienting. But then there's me where I didn't realize it was a mirror, so it just looked like it kept going. That's why the room was
Mhm.
constantly, it was basically reflecting on itself. And I was like, well, there's your problem. And yeah, that, so newsflash, don't tile your bathroom in mirrors, it can cause problems. And if you look into the theory that entities can use mirrors to travel, well, that was an expressway.
Yeah, that would be like Grand Central Station for Portal City in that bathroom if you take that
If you go with that
concept.
theory. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you I want your opinion on this because this is kind of how I've always ran this personally. This is a personal opinion,
Mhm.
but it's really helped me, I feel. Um, when we go to get any evidence, if it's an orb, I pretty much toss those out for a number of reasons. I've seen many pictures where like, look at all the orbs, and it's like we took the picture again, didn't get them. I went back and it's like, this is the room. Yeah, take a picture. No orbs, no orbs. Okay, reached up, flipped the ceiling because it was a drop ceiling. Said, take a picture. I'm surrounded by orbs. If it's a drop ceiling and there's orbs, guess what? It's probably just a room
Mhm.
full of dust. It happens. So orbs
Mhm.
never impress me. Um,
Mhm.
but EVPs, you'll hear people talk about different class EVPs, A, B, C.
Mhm.
Class A is you caught it, you play it, you can hear it clearly, no cleanup, nothing is needed.
Mhm.
And then you get the ones where you have to filter out background noises, static, the computer programs looking for patterns. I'll be honest, me, if it's not class A, I don't count it. And my rationality behind this for my personal investigations is I'm trying to find hard data. If I have to run it through
Mm-hmm.
any computer program, unless I wrote the program myself personally, I don't know the exact metrics it's using to clean up or create that sound.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents on an EVP.
Yeah. Now, what would you say would be more so the situations when you do these investigations? Was it most of the time just energy fluctuations and not actual spirit, or more so fear of the homeowner and not spirit? Like, what would you say would be the most common conclusion after you would finish a paranormal investigation?
Percentage wise, I would say most often fear and misinterpretation.
Mm,
Um, Next to that would definitely be from a metaphysical perspective, we ran into a lot of emotionally created thought forms.
mm-hmm. Which I could see that.
But after that, it's definitely residual. It's just like an imprint that's replaying over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the more intelligent, active stuff is definitely on the rarer side.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, many of the thought forms can actually replicate those too if they've been around enough a lot. You know, because you've
Mm-hmm.
got these homes that's had these incidents happen for 10, 15 years, sometimes even generational, and they pick
Mm-hmm.
up with time. Well, if it increased with time, for me, that's usually a key factor to consider a thought form.
Mm-hmm.
But to someone who doesn't study magic metaphysics at all, let's be honest, a thought form is a spirit to them. They wouldn't know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have to consider that factor as well. Uh, but yeah, I'd say most of it is misinterpretation. And that's actually on the rise. So
Mm-hmm.
just as there's people who can't change a tire or don't know how to check their oil or change their oil, there's people who don't understand how a furnace works. They don't understand how the um, heating and air duct system in their house works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's just little things about house maintenance that are just largely overlooked anymore. And as we know, those things make noises and it changes
Oh
through
yeah.
the year. Um, so those things are stuff that'll make noise and throw them off.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like it once like it's nighttime and things are quiet, like almost any house will make some type of creak and noises because the house is settling, there's movement, um,
The temperature change.
any type of, yeah, temperature change. There could be critters in the backyard or outside of the house that could be making noises.
Yep.
All those things could easily trigger fears, which, and then like what you were saying, the fears would then lead into like a thought form if they keep on letting those fears manifest over and over again. It would
Yeah.
then turn into a thought form, and at that point, it'd be those incidences will probably increase at that point because then they've created something unintentionally out of their fears.
Yep. Or it could be even a previous tenant accidentally created it and you've just viewed it as a haunting. Doesn't mean you
Mhm.
yourself personally created it. So, but I'll admit, even in my attempt to debunk and skepticism, there's been times where stuff just doesn't make sense. You can't figure it out.
Mhm.
Um, and in all honesty, it shouldn't happen.
Mhm.
Because I have seen footage before where it's like, well, that fell over. That's all it was. That fell over. There's nothing paranormal about it. But when you slow the footage down and look at it closer, you realize that this object fell over because this object here somehow lifted and came over and pulled it over.
Mhm.
Well, this object shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to also look closely at any of the evidence you get,
Yeah.
because you could be overly skeptical. But then there are things where I honestly don't know how it could be anything but a ghost. And I'm thinking of a
Yeah.
particular plantation in Louisiana owned by a friend of mine's family. I remember staying there the first time, and her dad looked at me and said, "Now, you city boy, don't you worry." He's like, "You hear any noises at night or your door opens, don't you worry. It's just the ghost. It's checking in on you, making sure you're all right." Okay, first off, the fact that this Cajun thought I was a city boy, that's hilarious. But to him, I probably was. Okay. And after the couple days I've had with this individual, I'm pretty sure he was just messing with me. I'll be honest. Nice guy, but so that night I'm laying there, and sure enough, I keep hearing someone walking in the hall, and I keep hearing the doors open. This is a old-fashioned kind of Cajun family, and both the grandmother and the mother are very loving individuals. So I just figured maybe she's looking in on the kids or whatnot. So I'm chilling out, and at one point I'm sitting there and I watch my door open outwardly. No one's there. There was never a shadow under the door, and it didn't slam shut. It slowly closed, like someone was looking in on a kid or something. Now, you can give me all kinds of an excuse, but here's the thing that threw me, because it's something I noticed the first time I was in the upstairs of this house. This house is an old house. It's built so wind and stuff doesn't really affect it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on the outside of this room looking at the bedroom doors, they're built like this
Oh.
so that they can't randomly fly open. The weight's actually holding them down, but yet my door opened slowly to a perfect, I mean, it was fully out, and it didn't fall. It slowly came back down. I spent the whole day trying to figure out what scenario that door could slowly do that without someone holding it. To this day, I got nothing. So I just, that house is haunted.
Yeah.
That house
That is interesting. Very interesting. So now, kind of how we were talking about like technology earlier and things like that. Do you anticipate a problem with paranormal investigations with computer programs that people that I've been seeing make videos where it looks like there's a ghost, but they've used technology to make it look like ghosts are there, and it seems that
I
technology is
do.
becoming more and more accessible to people.
There's a lot of editing software and stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
It is becoming more accessible and more of a problem. In fact, it's getting to be where any decent footage you get almost has to be tore apart by a video forensic individual to see if it was
Mm-hmm.
created or if it's legitimate footage. It is a growing problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things, with so many things being created, it's getting harder and harder to just people to just trust your footage. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to remember that's not necessarily an insult against us, because if they don't know you, they don't know your team's reputation. They have to kind of assume there's a chance that someone created this. And
Mm-hmm.
there's been plenty of documented cases where a team's been brought in to investigate a haunting, and the team actually found out the house was rigged like a fun house to fake a haunting.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I believe it's even happened to ghost hunters a time or two. So you got that side as well. But yeah, technology is getting to be a issue for faking it. But then you also got it's actually interesting you brought that up because computer programs and technology, we're seeing the tools of ghost hunting change a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And white noise and spirit boxes are all the rage these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I've seen some things like that.
I'll be honest with you, I've put these things to the test several times. And I will continue to do so. But right now, I personally don't like them as a ghost hunting tool. From a science side, because we go back to our brains trying to fill in patterns. So if it's
Mm-hmm.
just white noise, your brain's going to make that white noise make sense. So did you hear something? Who knows? And then you got the spirit boxes that scan bandwidths. Is it really a spirit picking it out, or is it just randomly picking out words? Even if it
Mm-hmm.
matches your question, there's how do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Outside just trusting the device, it's a hard one for me. I'm not saying don't use them because apparently a lot of investigators having some good luck with them, but they are one of the ones that's it's some of the newer tech that I'm unsure about still.
Yeah.
And we need to approach the new tech with that kind of skepticism, really. So, I mean, really, it's kind of funny because we've gone down several rabbit trails here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking about it, and with the questions you're asking, the tech, and the problems like faked footage,
Mm-hmm.
a lot has changed, but perhaps the process really hasn't.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, when we first started, it was all about provable data and debunking what you could, debunking everything you can, and what you're left with that you can't explain, that might be something. Even with the new tech, even with the possible faked footage, if we double down on that concept, I think would still be good, even from
Yeah.
not just a scientific, but a metaphysical side, because you
Mm-hmm.
can't prove this medium talked to nobody. You just can't. You might be able to pull historical documents or something, but then how do you prove the medium didn't pull them first? I've always gotten that
Very
question.
true.
I always got that question. Um, but the smart magician would use their metaphysical prowess and talent not to be like, I spoke to such and such. No, they would use their talent and prowess to position the scientific tools.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
That
we
makes
are the
sense.
mages we think we are, then that should increase our chances of getting the data on the more physical scientific
Mm-hmm.
tools.
I actually really like that concept because instead of trying to say, "Oh, I'm getting messages from so and so and he's saying this," you're more so tapping into the energies and where you're feeling the energies, and then like what you said, you're placing the equipment based off of where you're sensing those energy changes are.
Right. And if you sense a spirit in a room, bring the gear in.
Mhm.
Instead of trusting on your arcane senses or however it is you communicate, bring the equipment in, do the investigation old school so you don't need a magician to interpret it.
Mhm.
And I think it's weird because for all I've talked about the science of investigation and how much I love sticking to the science, it's kind of, I won't lie, it's an epiphany I had, and I feel stupid that I just now had it here while we're recording
Mhm.
because it seems so obvious. It's like a lot has changed and progressed, but what hasn't is the base foundation, and that's where we really need to double and triple down.
Yeah.
Especially as metaphysical practitioners,
Yeah.
because if we believe in what we do, we should be able to utilize that to the provable tech
Mm-hmm.
and not make an ass of ourselves looking like a goofball in a shop in a historic town.
Mm-hmm.
Or worse. I've seen worse, but that one just really sticks out because that person embarrassed the tar out of me with that one. But um, so it is interesting because I mean, I came on here tonight thinking how much it had changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've mentioned it a time or two with all the changes.
Yeah.
But those changes didn't change the foundation now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The foundation and the basics are still solidly there.
I think that's why I like science because I don't like change. Though the data may change what we understand, and we may have to revise the hypothesis, the foundation we built on didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning a little bit about me tonight. um, and this tonight, we're just doing a broad touch on this. We're going to be doing more of these for sure. And actually, if anyone out there has used a spirit box or white noise device, um, and they've gotten some decent results, feel free to message us below. Let us know about it. In truth, me and Jade have kicked around the idea of potentially doing and possibly filming a investigation and actually kind of a field example of how I might do it. Please don't run out on me if we're going to do this. But that's definitely down the road because I don't have any of my old equipment. So,
Yeah.
But if we do get an opportunity to do stuff like that, I would be interested in utilizing some of those devices. And heck, even if I can get a hold of them, I usually end up in haunted freaking places. It's just the way the moves tend to work. So I could probably even test them out and give some thoughts on them there because I'm always willing to be wrong. Just because I personally can't find a value in them at this moment doesn't mean there isn't. I have to make that very, very clear because there's a lot of people like, well, Drake said, yeah, Drake did say that, but I just want to specify that that's at this point in time.
Yep. And if I can figure out the way on how to record on my phone and use an app at the same time, I will do my best to try to show examples of the paranormal apps that I have tested out and share the footage so you guys can see, what I've tried and which ones I think have maybe some legitimacy to the way the app works and which ones I feel are more novelty.
That might be a good series in and of itself. Witchy apps, and kind of give them like a rating, 5-star or whatnot. Crap. Because apparently the witchy apps are getting more and more of a thing.
Yeah, they're growing.
I think the only one I've ever used personally was something that kind of gave you your daily astrological hour. It done all the math for you. And since I don't really use astrological hours or haven't in God knows how long, when I got a new phone, I just never re-downloaded it.
Is that all based off a natal chart?
No, astrological hour, it's not an individual thing. It's actually based so basically every week is broken into a day-night cycle where each hour represents one of the planets. And it essentially just cycles through that. So every like Monday, I think, starts with the moon, I think. And it just follows that kind of pattern.
Okay, got it.
So like if you wanted to do a working in the hour of Saturn, you would consult this and see what hour supposedly associates with Saturn.
Okay.
I had it for a while to do some planetary hour testing. My first exposure to it was in Conway's books, but she just gave a static chart. So I tested that, didn't find any meat to it. So I went to the one that, changes daily, and still didn't really find a lot of meat to it for my personal practice.
Mm-hmm.
Some people swear by it, though.
Hmm.
It's the only one I've used. Other than that, I now have a weather app. That's it. Everything else on my phone is pretty much work or entertainment based nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the fact that I even have a smartphone surprises me still. So yeah, I barely know how to use what I got. So, but that would be an interesting thing to pardon me,
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah. If I can get that figured out, I'd be more than happy to field test whatever metaphysical apps you guys want us to test out
Mhm.
and give feedback on it.
Yeah, and we will be discussing. We'll go ahead and wrap up. We've been yammering. We did
Yeah.
not think we had a lot to talk about. We were wrong.
Time flies when you are in good conversation.
It does. We are going to be looking at doing some cryptids. I think next week, though, we have the next roundtable with the Havamal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yep.
actually looking forward to that. We've gotten a lot of great reviews on those.
That's exciting. I love reading through the Havamal.
It's surprisingly relevant, but it's like they say, good wisdom is relevant.
Yeah.
So, which I find pretty cool. And I love Jackson Crawford's translations. He done an amazing job. But we are following that. We should be doing I want to say we're doing a cryptid.
Yes, we will be doing a cryptid after the Havamal.
Cool. I'm hoping to potentially share some of my old case stories and short videos from here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see how those go. But yeah, if you have any suggestions on mysteries, cryptids, or oddities that you would like us to cover, leave those in the comments below. Because we'll probably hit the ones that pop to our mind, which is usually the ones that interest us. That's not to say we won't do a revisit because let's be honest, there's so many cryptids and tales out there. There's no way we could cover it all in one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let us know what it is you'd like to hear about. Any comments, Jade?
No, this was fun. I had a blast talking about all this.
Yes. Just imagine if Halloween shows up for once.
Yeah,
Then it'll
absolutely.
get weird.
I know she's going to definitely love the cryptid series, especially I know there's one in particular, like what you mentioned.
Yep.
She would be highly upset if we did that cryptid video without her. So
She's
we
still
will make
mad I
sure
had an
she is there.
opportunity to actually go out and investigate that one. I was
Oh,
invited to join a
really?
crew back in, I want to say it was late 18, early 19, 2019.
Okay.
It was like right after we moved here. I got an invitation to drive out for about 3 weeks to do an investigation on some recent sightings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I turned it down.
Oh,
So I'm kind of kicking myself, and I know she's like, why did you do this? Yeah, really. You know how she gets.
yeah. I mean, at the time, it really wasn't probably relevant to you. So,
No, again, it was like right after a move, so we were still settling. There was a lot going on. There were factors,
yeah.
but hopefully I'll be able to get back out in the field and do more investigations. But till then, I got plenty of files to pull from and shenanigans to talk about.
I can't wait to discuss all of them.
Yes, we may have to do a roundtable potentially just talking about some of the goofy crap that's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, because I actually have a buddy who pulled a gun on a ghost. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
And we were just all like, it's a ghost. He's like, it makes me feel better. Like, really? An emotional support gun. Okay, why not?
I mean, different strokes for different folks.
He was a good guy, good guy. But yeah, all right then. We will close up here, and I will see you next week for the Havamal reading. Be prepared for that. Um, hopefully, I can read better and remember what stanza we're on, because the previous one, Lord help us, I could not remember where I was. It was just a bad night for me. I apologize. All right. Yeah, that'll be it. So, Jade, you have a great night. Thank you for pitching this idea and joining me to discuss paranormal shenanigans.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
And I look forward to
Till
talking
next
about more in
time.
the future. All right. Everyone, have a great evening and bye-bye.